want to do it on the moon? Take off your mask. Oh, Stan. You're so kinky.
Should I tell him I'm trans?
Would you fuck a trans girl?
As a guy that became a girl, or a girl that became a guy?
Guy that became a girl. Attractive woman. You hit it off. I'm trans. You went on like one date, and then on the second date, she's like, I still have my penis.
Probably not. Like, just because, like, you're into her the first date doesn't mean, like, because she brings up new information, like, sometimes like, oh, like, I'm not into that.
You'd be like, no, you're gross, or like, oh no, I'm sorry.
No, obviously, I wouldn't say, like, your girl's, like, obviously, like, no, that's like saying, like,
You just go,
oh, you like ramen? You're like, oh, disgusting. I was like, bro, like, you got your own personal, like, choice with how you want to lead your life. Cool, but, like, that's not what I'm into.
Consent is not as simple as hearing yes. Consent must be freely given, without coercion or duress. It must not be given under false pretenses or withheld information. It can be revoked at any time. Legally, rape in the United States is typically defined as penetration, no matter how slight, of the vagina or anus with any body part or object, or oral penetration by a sex organ of another person, without the consent of the victim. However, when it comes to lying in order to have sex with a person who would not otherwise agree, it is often hard to prosecute, and courts may vary their rulings depending on the circumstances at hand. As noted in the Yale Law and Policy Review, when people lie to obtain money, we call it theft. When they lie to enter private property, we call it trespass. When they lie to obtain sex, we have no idea what to call it. Some call it lawful seduction. Others call it criminal rape. In any case, it is widely accepted that lying in order to convince someone to have sex with you is immoral, if not always illegal. There is a wide range of circumstances which may fall under the category of rape by deception. In the UK, undercover police officer Mark Kennedy pretended to be an environmental activist in order to spy on a group, and slept with 10 women while living under a false identity, as well as held long-term relationships with several women. One of the women involved, who had been in a relationship with him for 2 years, told the police to court in 2018, claiming they had infringed upon her human rights by allowing Mark to conduct sexual relationship with her while covering up who he really was. In January 2022, the Investigatory Powers Tribunal found his actions to be an abuse of the highest order, and that he had grossly debased, degraded, and humiliated her. Christine Wilson, a 25-year-old trans-identified woman, lied to 2 teenage girls who believed they were in a relationship with a man. However, due to her gender identity disorder, the judge chose not to give her jail time, and instead she was placed on probation. The judge noted, "These are very unusual offenses. I have accepted that you genuinely feel that you are male rather than female. I believe this obviously significantly reduces your culpability. I believe that this can be dealt with by the imposition of a probation order." In Toronto, a man tricked 2 men into having sex with him by creating a false female persona online and then inviting them to his house to play out a glory hole scenario, wherein, as instructed, the victims walked into the home and put their penises inside a hole in a sheet hanging in a doorway. Oral sex was performed, and then it became penetration without warning, which both victims believed was anal. The judge noted that there was a fair amount of planning involved to ensure that he was not found out, and that the crime was a violation of personal integrity and the negating of the victim's right of self-determination that makes these offenses serious.
When I was dating Stealth, I wasn't disclosing that I was trans on dating apps. And I was basically living my life as a man and navigating the dating world as a man. And then when it came to disclosing, I would not disclose unless things got to the point of romance and physicality. So unless I knew for a fact this was going somewhere, I would not tell them I was trans. And back then, I wasn't as visible on my social medias as I am now, so it kind of worked out back then. But the reason why dating stuff never worked for me was because of the possibility of rejection once you got to the point of disclosure. I remember there was one guy that I briefly dated, and we went to the club, and then after the club, he was like, "Oh, do you want me to suck yo?" And I'm over here panicking because I'm like, "Baby, there's nothing there for you to suck. Like, there is nothing there for you to suck, baby." So I basically just talked myself out of the situation. I was like, "Oh, I'd rather wait. Like, I really like you, da da da." So I sent him on his merry way, and then as soon as I got in my car, I blocked him. Because even though I liked him and, you know, he obviously shown interest in me, I just couldn't get to the point of disclosure and then hurting myself by just outing myself and possibly being rejected. Like, I couldn't do it.
Although not every case is prosecuted as a crime, it is well understood that rape by deception is still rape. It is still a violating and cruel offense. It is still wrong. So why is lying about your sex any different?
Where's the cheese?
It's under the sauce.
There's no cheese on it.
It's under the sauce.
Like, I'm Italian and this is hurting me.
It's from Chicago.
But it's just
The
sauce.
cheese is under the sauce.
That's not enough cheese.
Cheese is under the sauce.
It's not enough. It's under the sauce.
Call it medicine, but I don't need drugs, 'cause I'm already high enough.
Many trans-identified males argue that it is necessary to lie about their sex in order to be safe. This is often linked to the gay panic defense, which first appeared in court cases in the 1960s and continues to be raised in criminal trials today. In these cases, defendants have argued that their violent behavior was a rational response to discovering by surprise that the victim was LGBTQ. However, today it is far easier to vet who one engages in romantic or sexual relationships with before meeting, as the internet allows for distance between the two when information such as biological sex is revealed. When it is as simple as texting a prospective partner, "I'm trans," there truly is no excuse for violating the sexual boundaries of another person for personal gain.
This might be a hot take, but I don't think a trans person has to tell anyone that they're trans, ever, if they don't want to. That includes partners, spouses, friends, employers. I saw a post on Reddit recently where a woman was talking about how she just found out that her girlfriend is trans after they've been together for 2 years, and she feels lied to and she thinks she's going to break up with her because the betrayal feels so strong. First off, for some trans people, being trans is the least interesting thing about them. Some people are like, I don't care that I wasn't born a girl. I've been a girl my whole life. Others may have had traumatic experiences where they waited to tell a partner that they were trans and then it was met with bad reception, or they've been disowned by their family for being trans. Some trans people don't even identify as trans, they just identify as man or woman. And like, yeah, maybe to you that's a big deal and that's something that you'd want to know about your partner. Being trans is deeply personal and sometimes traumatic, and no one is ever obligated to tell you something traumatic about themselves. Also, consider how traumatic it would be for someone to be in a relationship with you for 2 years, tell you that they love you, and then when they find out about this secret, act like your entire identity is a lie, and then break up with you. How is the trans woman the villain in this situation?
Often this is done because the perpetrator knows that the victim would not agree to have sex with them otherwise, typically because their sex does not align with the sexuality of the victim, be it a straight man or a lesbian woman. In these cases, the reality that no one is owed sex is constantly ignored and lying is portrayed as a necessary action. This reveals the heart of the issue. Many of these people enjoy the feeling of getting over on another person, as not being recognized as their sex is viewed as proof of passing as the opposite sex. They often argue that not being recognized as their sex is proof that they are the same as a so-called cisgender person. However, regardless of how well a person may pass or think they pass, withholding information which you are aware could cause a partner to not consent to sex with you is willfully deceiving them, and ergo, rape by deception.
Okay, so people are really gonna disagree with me on this, but I don't think trans people are obligated to tell the people that we're dating that we're trans. At least not right away. Think about it. In the context of dating and in society in general, cis people aren't expected to disclose private, sensitive, intimate details about what they have between their legs before they even meet people and right up front. I mean, I'm not on dating apps asking dudes how big their dick is so I can decide whether or not I like them before even giving them a chance. So why are trans people expected to provide a detailed rundown of our entire medical history and all the surgeries we've had, and give extensive details about what's between our legs immediately, when that same expectation is not placed on cis people. It's honestly ridiculous, absurd, and transphobic. My belief is this: if you are really that adamantly opposed to dating a trans person, you should put it in your profile that you are against dating trans people, and you should make it a point to ask all potential partners and dates whether or not they're trans. The onus should be on you, not on the trans person. Now, with that being said, I do think that as trans people, we should tell new partners about our transness before things become intimate. And that's really more for safety reasons than anything else. You don't want there to be any surprises, and you don't want to potentially put yourself in an unsafe or dangerous or volatile situation. Ultimately, as a trans woman, I think it's up to me to decide when I'm ready to share my full story and my truth with someone. I don't think I owe it to anyone to tell them right away or on the first date, second date, third date. It's completely up to me. And in order for me to want to share my deepest truths with someone, they have to build trust with me and make me feel safe enough to be able to do that. So honestly, I'm sorry, you can call me a fraud, a liar, say I'm out here trying to trick guys, but I don't think I have to tell anyone that I was born male until I'm ready and I feel comfortable doing so.
And of course, that is under a pretense that the person actually passes. It is just as likely that in the case of a man pretending to be a woman with an actual woman, that the woman in question might decide that the risk accompanying denial of this person would be greater than the price of having sex with a person they are attracted to. Florence Ashley argues in Gender Fucking, Non-Disclosure, Sexual Fraud, Transgender Bodies, and Messy Identities that since trans men are men and trans women are women, it is not misleading for them to present as they do. Highlighting the limitations of this position, which doesn't fully account for the messiness of gendered experiences, Ashley puts forward an argument against the criminalization of transgender history, non-disclosure rooted in privacy. Gender identity is a private matter, and people should not be forced to figure it out or communicate it to others to have an intimate life. Mobilized in this context, privacy can be understood as a refusal of the state's authority to order our gendered lives. In other words, he believes that no one has an obligation to reveal their sex to sexual partners. This reeks of rapist rhetoric, as a person seeking a consenting partner would not try to find so many loopholes to avoid being honest and potentially avoid rejection, but also highlights the division of body and gendered soul common in trans activism. By portraying the body as completely separate and unaligned with gender identity, pressure is created to force others to ignore a lack of attraction to show belief and validation of gender identity instead. In other words, you are meant to be attracted to the pronouns, regardless of if you are attracted to the person.
This is a great point. So, the cotton ceiling originally was coined by a trans activist and porn actress, Drew DeVoe, in 2015. What Drew was talking about was an instance where cis lesbians and bi plus women would claim to be trans allies, but then also rule out any relationships working with trans women. And what Drew was trying to raise as an issue was that we say trans women are women, but then we don't treat them as women. And it was really just about examining our internal biases and thinking about our sexual preferences and our relationship preferences that may have undertones of transphobia. And this is true for any preference. Height preferences, racial preferences, any of those things. They do not exist within a void. We live in a cisnormative, heteronormative, and white supremacist world. So our preferences are influenced by those issues. and TERFs, being TERFs, latched onto this and then claimed that trans women were forcing cis women to have sex with trans women, which is not a thing anyone has advocated for. Because for a start, why would trans people want to have sex with transphobes? But also, it's not to say that you have to do any of these things. It's just that you have to consider that perhaps your preferences and your assumptions about what sex is like with certain demographics is influenced by internal bias and discrimination.
Additionally, this ties in with the concepts of the cotton ceiling and genital preferences, and ultimately, the belief that sexual attraction and activity are forms of gender validation required of allies. The cotton ceiling refers to the cotton of women's underwear as a barrier to be broken, similar to the glass ceiling, which refers to the difficulty women have in rising in corporate structures. It posits the lack of lesbians attracted to trans-identified males, or in other words, lesbians attracted to men, as a social issue to be conquered instead of the reality of lesbian attraction. Meanwhile, the genital preference debate continues to center on a belief that genitals have nothing to do with one's sex or sexual attraction. Men can have vaginas and women can have penises, and attraction is meant to be based not in material reality of these bodies, but in the gender they identify as. However, the truth is, you have sex with your body. Genitals are involved by the nature of what sex is. Your biological sex is an important aspect of sexual attraction, and regardless of gender identity, your sex is immutable. Most importantly, no one is owed sex. Consent can be revoked at any time, and a no can be for any reason. You don't have to agree with it. Your body is never going to be a validation machine, and lying about your sex to receive validation, regardless of why you do so, is rape. Plain and simple.
So before my surgery, I think it was a little more important. I would literally be with a guy and just like get caught up in the moment and think he's like so perfect, so amazing. And I was like, wait, like I have to tell you something. And now having a vagina, I've like fully had sex with people and like just not even told them. They just like don't know. When guys get upset when they find out you're trans, it's honestly based off their own insecurities of like, oh, I find so-and-so attractive. Oh, she used to be a boy. Oh my God. If you're attracted to me, if you literally just had sex with me, it doesn't matter. Like who I was born as, like I'm not that person anymore.
This, dear viewers, is where we part. This is one of those topics that I've actually been writing about for a while. I do this thing where I'm scrolling on Tumblr or I'm on over it and I see like a TikTok or a video that goes to like an idea and I start collecting them all in this one folder, and then once I finally have enough to like center a video around, then the script comes. And this is kind of why like oftentimes I'll get suggestions for video ideas, but they come out like months later, and that's because I just have to find more than just me speaking into the microphone. I have to find TikToks or videos or other visuals to kind of break up the siren monotoning into the microphone thing. Anyhow, I think I've talked about genital preferences, I've talked about the cotton ceiling, and I don't think I've ever really discussed the crux of the issue, which is that it's rape. That's literally what it is. And I am hoping to further get into this topic, not necessarily rape by deception or genital preferences or any of that, just the concept of rape and how it is perceived and portrayed and the relationships people have with it in our culture. Because it's such an interesting topic and one that I feel like is often highly sexualized. It's really difficult for anyone to talk about rape without it being sexualized in some way. And that's very difficult and very annoying to have to try to talk around it or make sure that you walk this line of directly stating how horrific this is without crossing the line into something that people will get their rocks off of. Anyhow, this video is this video, so if you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!